Welcome to Gazette Sports Week, sponsored by Adrenaline Fitness. I'm Dan Russell. We're going to start out this week. We're going to talk a little bit about wrestling. Start with Hammonton's wrestling team. Blue Devils slide to 0-3 last week. They lost to Absegami. They lost to St. Augustine Prep. I think the Absegami score was 54-18. Prep was 61-18. Only a handful of wins for Hammonton, and I think they won 3 bouts in each of these meets, and I think 4 of the 6 were forfeit wins. Devils, young team, adjusting to a very tough schedule, especially early in the season. It will lighten up towards the end. I think, talking to Coach Mauriello, he's been very encouraged, what he told me about the way the team is coming in, work hard every day. A lot of young guys, a lot of guys who've never really been out on a varsity mat, learning how to wrestle at that level, competing against very good teams. Absegami is a good team. They're better than Hammonton right now. The Prep is better than Hammonton right now. So, not really unexpected to see these kind of scores and these kind of results, but this is a team that's working very hard. I think they're going to get better. You're going to see some of these guys improve during the course of the year. There's some encouraging matches last week against Absegami, especially in the lightweights. The 06 match, the match at 113. Those guys had chances to win those matches, only lost by a couple points. I think they have a big challenge this week. They go to Lower Cape May Wednesday night. Cape May, one of the better teams in the Cape Atlantic League. That's going to be a struggle for them. But they get Vineland on Friday at 6 o'clock, and that's a match I got circled on the calendar. I think Hammonton can do some damage against Vineland. Vineland's another team that's kind of rebuilding. They're down some guys. They lost to St. Joe last week in a match that was kind of pretty even, I thought, watching the live feed on that. So, for Hammonton, again, rebuilding type of year. They haven't had one of these kind of seasons in a long time. A season where they're not going to go out and be a dominant type of program this year. But again, when I talked to Coach Mauriello last week, he said the big thing right now is just building for next year, to where hopefully they can get 10, 11 guys that they can feel pretty confident about putting out on a mat next year, that are going to be able to go out and compete every night. And I think they're going to be able to do that. I think they're going to get that. You can't really count how much just getting the experience means when you're in a sport like wrestling. You kind of have to learn how to win. You have to learn how to handle different situations, and I think they're going to do very, very well. St. Joe, they lost to Mainland last week, 43-18, but they bounced back. They beat Vineland. A couple of pins in that one. Gahad Hughes had a pin. Nick Melchiore had a pin. Bryan Butkus had a pin. They won 3 or 4 matches by forfeit, beat Vineland 42-30. They were down early in that one because they had to forfeit so many matches up top, but they wound up coming back, and all the kids that actually were able to go out on the mat actually won. So, that's encouraging for them for what they're trying to do over there for St. Joe. You're talking about a roster with only 8 guys on it, and 2 of them are heavyweights, so only one of those guys is going to go every match. So when there's 14 bouts in a meet, and you only have 7 kids that can get on the mat, you're looking at being down 42-0 right from the start. So if you're St. Joe, you got to go out and you got to win. Unless you get lucky. Like Vineland, there's a couple double forfeits, which really helped St. Joe, because they were able to not have to give up points. And the other thing is, it puts a lot of pressure on your wrestlers to go out and get those bonus points. You can't just go out and win a 7-2 decision. You got to get a major. You got to get a tech fall. You got to get a pin, really, is what you're shooting for in all these matches. And these guys, Hughes has wrestled very well. He's bounced between 152 and 160. The freshman, Melchiore, is wrestling very well. Butkus, a big kid, wrestling well. P.J. Williams, another heavyweight that's wrestled very, very well. Anthony Cruz, these guys, the Steiner kid, they're looking pretty good. So if you're St. Joe, you got to be encouraged by what you're seeing. They had a busy week this week. They went down to Millville on Monday, wrestling a Millville team that's usually pretty good. EHT this week. EHT is always good. That's going to be a tough one down there in Egg Harbor Township. And then they get Pitman on Saturday morning. So hopefully, if you're St. Joe, you can get one of these be a win at least, and and keep yourself on the right track to where they're getting at least a win a week, which is very, very nice for them. Move on to volleyball. St. Joe's volleyball team. Their girls lost to Salem Tech last week, lost to Oakcrest, lost to ACIT. They're 0-5. Starting to get a little bit better. You're starting to see some of the scores get a little tighter in these matches. Again, young team at St. Joe, not a lot of depth over there. They will play EHT this week, or on Monday they played them. They played Hammonton on Tuesday in the rivalry game. They're going to be off for a little bit because of the Easter break. But Hammonton's volleyball team, obviously you hosted St. Joe earlier this week, but don't have a result on that one. They go to 0-4 last week. They lose to Olmo. They lose to Cedar Creek. Olmo, one of the better teams in the Cape Atlantic League, was not surprised to see that. I went over there. I was in the gym for that match, and Olmo had some nice strings when they strung together. Some nice runs to kind of put that match away. But Hammonton competed there. I think they played very well. Arwen Russell played real well, I thought, in that match. Tiffany Peretti played well. Luca Bernardo had a couple of aces in there too. The team's starting to put things together again. Again, this is a team's second-year program, still trying to learn the sport. I mean, when you watch Hammonton play, you see they're a little confused at times as to what they're supposed to be doing, where they're supposed to be on the court, that kind of thing. But that'll come. I think this team's going to, again, when you talk about the volleyball teams, I think the goal should be, to be better at the end of the year than they are now, and I think they're both going to be that way. Curious to report to you. I'll be interested to report to you next week on what happens between Hammonton and St. Joe, because one of those teams is going to get a win. So you're finally going to see a victory up on the scoreboard for one of the volleyball teams, which is great. So we'll be able to report that to you next week. But that gives you a look at locally. The other stuff going on locally is the spring teams are starting to practice. So the track teams are out on the track. Baseball and softball open up this week with their workouts. Boys tennis will open up. Boys volleyball will start to practice. Hammonton's got a boys volleyball team for the first time in their history. So I'm curious to see what they look like and how well they play. The golf teams are out on the course. Matthias Spahn, talking to him, Hammonton's head coach, he's very excited about the team they have this year, and he thinks they're going to do very, very well. I'm curious to see how they do. So hopefully the NJSIA has plans to have a full spring season. Talking with Coach Silvestri, baseball coach over at Hammonton, he said, we got a full schedule. So hopefully things will go well. We'll be able to get back outside where I think you're going to see these teams do very, very well. I think both of the softball teams, Hammonton and St. Joe, should have nice seasons. St. Joe's baseball team doing a little bit of a rebuild. They'll have to figure some things out, but I think you're going to see a real, real nice season. Hopefully the spring will set the tone for the rest of the year. When you can start getting back to normal, we can have a good summer, and then maybe in the fall start to see things kind of get back to kind of like the way they really should be and have a full fall season. It'd be great to do. But when I come back on Gazette Sports Week, we're going to talk with Kyle Pantalone. He's Newman University's ice hockey team. He's their goalie. He's going to be on our show in a couple minutes, so be sure to check it out.
Gazette Print Shop is here for you or your business. Whether you need a logo, posters, mugs, stationery, t-shirts, and much more, they can design it and make it a reality. Gazette Print Shop will help you promote your business and spread your message. Give your marketing a new direction with GPS. Gazette Print Shop. Go to Showcase Sports when you're looking for high school sports equipment and apparel, featuring gear with the logos of the Hammonton Blue Devils, St. Joseph Wildcats, and other high school teams.
Welcome back to Gazette Sports Week, sponsored by Adrenaline Fitness. And joining me on the phone this week from Newman University is their ice hockey goalkeeper, Kyle Pantalone. Kyle, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Dan. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, absolutely. Always like to kind of catch up on with some of the guys who have gone on to play in college or up to. And I mean, it's a slow time here locally with the high school stuff because of the way the seasons are all kind of out of whack. And even you guys, I mean, ice hockey usually, around this time of year is wrapping up.
Yeah, normally this is the time the national tournament's going on. Obviously, D3 won't have that this year, but we are doing our own conference playoffs, which we are in starting this Wednesday.
Absolutely.
So it's been a crazy year, but like everybody else, we're just trying to get by. So just thankful to be playing.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say that. I mean, it's been kind of crazy because I mean, I guess for a while it was probably up in the air if you guys were even going to have a season.
Yeah, I know for starters, it was like we were looking at the time, like back to August, thinking back, it was going to be that January 1 start date, and we normally start in like October. Mm-hmm. So it was like, all right, so already right from the start, when we get back to school, we're going to have a delayed start, and then they delayed it again. We ended up like kicking off like February 19th, and we've been going a 10-game schedule that just wrapped up this past weekend here. So,
I mean, and I guess you got to be at the very least you got to be happy that you had some kind of season.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I know a lot of conferences that aren't playing like around D3 hockey, which we're very fortunate that like the teams in the conference. I think we have all but one teams. King's College and Wilkes-Barre. They opted out, but it's very good that we were able to play. Like I said, a lot of D3 conferences, just like the SUNYAC and the MASCAC up in Massachusetts, they just opted out like right from the start. So feel for those guys who didn't even really get a chance to like lace them up this year and play, especially the seniors.
Absolutely. I mean, in athletics, really at the Division III level, really got hit hard because I know like the bigger schools, the D1 schools, those kind of schools, obviously because I guess with the money that's involved at that level. they kind of had to figure out ways to work out their seasons. But a lot of D3, Division III leagues and schools have really just opted, to just bag sports for the year, which is really kind of unfortunate, like you said, because you have a lot of athletes that are losing seasons.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think, like you said, a lot of it goes into money, and unfortunately, like at the D3 level, it's not always there for most, or it's just not willing to be taking that risk. But with that being said, I think I commend the university and all the other fellow members of because we're in our own separate conference for hockey, and the Atlantic East Conference is what all the other sports are in at Newman, and everybody's been doing a really good job to make sure all the athletes are getting tested. I know for one, we get tested 3 times a week. It's a little bit much, but that's what you got to do to play. And they're taking all the precautions they can that we could play safely and have somewhat of a season. So they've done a really good job here at Newman to make sure all the athletes are still playing and still playing with something for meaning, and making a real year out of something that's really not been. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that was a big issue. I mean, here in New Jersey, obviously, because with the high school hockey season, I mean, that was one of the sports that was really on the ropes as to whether or not they were going to let ice hockey teams play. And I know they had some issues up North Jersey, but for the most part, it went off pretty much without a hitch. I mean, hockey's an interesting sport, like you say. I mean, because you're indoors, obviously. I mean, have there been a lot of different, I guess, ways of doing things, you guys, when it comes to like game preparation and how things are handled?
Yeah, it's kind of like that when it goes like right into like the preparation and stuff like that. You gotta know you're having a season to you even go into it, and like I said, you gotta prepare beforehand. So it's tough to like just keep playing the waiting game, like or maybe we're gonna start on this date, or because you got different phases of your off-season training that you really want to hit it hard, like 1 week, and then you kind of ease yourself into the season so you're not like completely beat up like the whole year. But yeah, I know it was tough on the high school. I was kind of keeping like tabs on as much as I can. Feel for those guys too. I mean, like they've been playing, and like all this stuff that they got to follow, and it's just really been a tough year on everybody with everything going on and all the pauses and whatnot. So
oh yeah. And I mean, when you look at the season you guys have had up at Newman, kind of an up and down kind of year for you guys so far this year. I mean, I know you lost a couple games last week that got canceled. But when you head into the postseason, this show will come out on Wednesday, so today, when you're going to Stevenson, I mean, how do you guys feel going into that?
Well, we saw them last year in the playoffs, and like you said, it's been an up and down year, and I think we've been on the wrong side of a 1-goal game most of the season. So like just not getting a bounce here or there when we need one. I think it all comes down to like if we're able to get those goals that we can, like 5-on-5 and on the power play. I know that's been a big struggle for us this year. But if we're able to just like take it one shift at a time, and just kind of play to our system, and I know that once we do that, once we have the confidence, we're going to score, and it's my job to back the boys up and get them a big save when they need one. Luckily, I've been able to do that this year when they needed it the most. So
yeah, I was going to say, I mean, you're having a pretty nice year. I mean, you got like about close to 94% save percentage, so you got to feel pretty good about that. You feeling comfortable back there? You feel like you're having a good year?
Yeah, like in my junior year now, like you kind of get adapted like to the speed, and you just take it one shot at a time. You just kind of work on controlling the game, making it easier on your defensemen back there, getting whistles when you can. The guys, they tell me they seem to have confidence in me, so I guess that's good.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah,
that's a big thing.
It becomes more easier as you go on, and you kind of clear your mind and just focus on one puck at a time, and don't try to do too much, but just control the game for them. So
absolutely. I mean, you talked about the speed of the game. I mean, how different is it from back in the high school days?
Back in high school, and then like going into like junior hockey, like obviously you have your guys that could like play, and you have that which separates the ones who are going to college or the ones that are just gonna like stay in high school. And now everybody's here in college, and they've earned the right to be here, and it's like all the top talents from their high school leagues and their junior hockey days and stuff like that. So, you know, you adapt to it just, you know, as you play more games.
Absolutely.
I think that, like, D3 obviously is not as fast-paced as D1, but, like, the players are a lot smart. Like, not a lot smarter, but, you know, they still have the smarts, and it's just a workhorse kind of like hockey. Absolutely. They're going to put the puck down low, and, you know, they're going to hit you. Oh, yeah. And they're gonna shoot from any angle at all. So, and it's all special teams too, I believe. So, like, the power plays are always going to be drawn up, and, you know, you're going to see, like, guys in front of you, like in my case, and you got to battle through screens and work on that kind of stuff. So,
absolutely, yeah. And I mean, and even at the Division III level, I mean, I think sometimes people knock it a little bit, but a sport like ice hockey, where there's not a lot of opportunity because there's not a whole ton of schools that are playing it. You know, so you have that kind of trickle down effect where you know where there's not roster spots on the big schools, so these guys are looking for some place to play, and they kind of work themselves into these D3 schools.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always say that, like, D3 hockey is like no slouch at all. I mean, you only have about like 62 Division I teams, and I believe there's only like 83 Division III teams. There's like one D2 conference, like Northeast 10, but they play a D3 schedule anyway. So there's really no Division II hockey. Yep. So everybody from, you know, that doesn't really quite make D1, like myself, like, you know, we've had to go the D3 route, and there's still really, really good hockey players at this level. Like, some teams too that could probably compete with D1 teams who've actually beat D1 teams out in the Midwest. And even in our conference, I know Utica College is always our like tough rival, like, going into the season every year. So.
There you go. Yeah, like you said, it is playoff time. Did you catch that game the other night, that marathon game?
What was that, Duluth in North Dakota?
Yeah, Duluth in North Dakota.
yeah. We turned it on because we had a game that day as well, and, you know, it ended. So we turned it on, checked in. I think it didn't end up getting done like 2:30 in the morning, like Eastern time here. So it's pretty crazy.
It is. I mean, it's nuts. I mean, when you're in it, I mean, I don't know. You probably never played a game quite like that, but I mean, as a goalie, I mean, you know, I guess when it gets to crunch time like that and the game's going on and on and on, I mean, I guess the pressure's got to just be unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, I had my fair share of, like, overtime games, like double overtime. I've never gone that far. I mean, like, this season.
Nobody's gone that far.
That'd be a lot to ask for. Like, it gets tough because, you know, like, you could see, like, the guys are starting to get a little tired. The plays are a little bit sloppy. You're just trying not to make a mistake. So, you know, you're just as simple as you want to play, like, the first, I guess, half of the game, you could say. Like, when everything gets into overtime, it's like simplified times 10. So you don't want to try to do too much. And
absolutely.
Just stay within your realm.
And I guess when you look ahead, I mean, you know, hopefully maybe next season you guys get a full year in.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they're saying. I know the university itself had just relinquished a newsletter about how we're going to be in person, fully, and they want to absolutely, like, start sports at a regular time. So I think we're definitely on the back nine of the pandemic. I know for starters, I got my first dose of the vaccine. It seems like a lot of people are getting vaccinated, and you know, we could somewhat get back to normal here. But I think on the horizon is a regular start time next year and a full season, hopefully. So. All
right, man. Well, I want to thank you for giving me some time today. Okay.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Come back a couple minutes. We'll do the final five. All right.
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay. That wraps up our interview segment. When I come back on Gazette Sports, we're going to talk some pro sports, see what the Sixers and Flyers do, and the Phillies open up this week too. So we'll talk about them, and that's coming up right after this.
If you're looking to buy or sell, call Ricky Mauriello at RE/MAX. Call Ricky Mauriello direct at area code 609-352-9476. That's 352-9476. Or email him at rickym.remax@gmail.com. Remember, if you're looking to buy or sell, call Ricky Mauriello at RE/MAX today. Back pain? See Doc Manny today. Dr. Emmanuel Sanfilippo is a certified chiropractor and sports practitioner. With more than 25 years' experience, he knows what you need to feel like yourself again.
Welcome back to Gazette Sports Week, sponsored by Adrenaline Fitness. Now we'll move on. We'll do some national sports. We'll start off with the Sixers. playing pretty well on the West Coast, although they did lose the Clippers over the weekend. But, staying on top of the East standings, playing without Joel Embiid, who's still out with a knee injury. Ben Simmons has seen some limited time. Playing pretty good. They picked up George Hill at the trade deadline last week. The asking price, I know they really wanted Kyle Lowry from Toronto, but the Raptors were asking for a lot. They kind of moved off of that. They picked up Hill. He's a guy who adds some depth to the team. I think he can handle the ball pretty well. He's a pretty good point guard. He shoots pretty good. He's probably going to be a bench guy coming off for the Sixers, but I think he'll give them good minutes. My thing is I'm not sure that he puts them over the top in the East. I think he's a nice piece, but I'm not sure that he's the kind of guy that's going to where you're going to sit there and you're going to say, well, okay, now you can go out and you're going to beat Brooklyn in a series. You're going to beat Milwaukee in a series. I do think the Sixers are at least good enough to be a semifinalist in the East. I think that's where they'll probably hit a roadblock because they're going to have to run into either probably Milwaukee or Brooklyn, two teams that are very, very talented, probably two of the elite teams in the league right now. But we'll see. But obviously Sixers playing well. Hopefully they get Embiid back and he's healthy and play down the stretch for him and make them a much better team. Flyers, season's starting to kind of fall apart a little bit. They get hammered by the Rangers again. They did bounce back to beat them over the weekend, but they really faded in the last couple of weeks. This is a team that I thought really had a chance early in the season to make a little bit of a run. Not seeing that right now. They're kind of a mess. Defense has really been kind of awful. The goaltending has not been there. Carter Hart has not developed the way I think people thought he would. And when you watch them, they just kind of look a little lethargic to me. I think this team needs to play with a little more fire, a little more urgency. You're starting to run a situation where people are going to start questioning whether or not you should replace the coach at this point. And so the Flyers are going to have a lot of big decisions to make in the offseason, and a lot of decisions to make at the trade deadline. Do they move some of their guys? Because you went from at the beginning of the year, I think, thinking you maybe had a legitimate chance to be a contender, to now you're kind of at the point where do we kind of just start unloading guys and start thinking about next year? So I'm curious to see what they do. Pardon me, who they move. Move across town to the Eagles. Made a trade last week. They moved down in the draft. They traded the 6th pick to Miami for the 12th pick. They also got a 4th rounder and a first rounder next year. Excuse me. I guess you could say it's a nice move because you wind up getting 2 first-round picks for yours. One this year, one next year. I'm not really sure of the logic involved here. It probably signals to me that they're not interested in drafting a quarterback. I know Miami wants one. Miami trading up to the 6th is looking to get a quarterback at that spot. But to me, if you're going to say, well, we can get a skill guy at 12, and you can. There's a lot of mock drafts are showing the kid from Alabama, the Devontae, slipping in the draft, sliding down maybe to the 12th spot where the Eagles can get him. Curious to see if they would do that because last year they had the shot to take Justin Jefferson out of Alabama, opted not to. They took the other kid, I can't remember his name, Rieger. Not really sure what the Eagles are going to do. To me, if your goal is to get a pass catcher, a skill guy, you're going to have a better guy available at 6 than you are at 12. Just the numbers just are going to bear that out. There's a reason. I don't know. I don't really know what their logic is. Maybe they're hoping a guy slips to them. I can tell you one thing: they're not going to get a quarterback at 12. So if they are thinking about drafting a quarterback, I'd be stunned if they drafted one at the 12th spot. Maybe they take some of these picks they have now. Maybe they trade back up. Maybe they trade further down. Who knows? It's going to be curious to see what happens. But the other thing it tells me is that at least for 2021, this is going to be Jalen Hurts' team. So you get to see what he can do, and I guess he's going to have an opportunity to play 16, maybe now 17 games to kind of prove himself and see what he can do. And then you have the Phillies. Major League Baseball season opens tomorrow on April 1st. They'll host the Braves. Been an interesting kind of training camp for the Phillies. Not a lot of noise out of camp. Looks like Odubel Herrera, old name's going to maybe make the roster. Possibly the starting center fielder. We've talked in the past couple weeks about Scott Kingery, what they're going to do with him. I'm curious to see how that plays out. When I look at the Phillies, I see a team that maybe is the 3rd best team in the East. I think they're going to be lumped in with Washington and the Mets to kind of figure out what team's going to finish behind the Braves. I think the Braves are the class of this division. And I've said that before. We did a little preview of the National League East a couple weeks ago, and I said the Braves would win it. When you look at the Central in the National League, I think the Cardinals are kind of the class of that division. Went out and got Nolan Arenado to kind of shore up their infield and give them a big bat in the middle of the lineup. Their pitching staff, Jack Flaherty leads that staff, very good staff. They got a nice deep bullpen. Guys like Jordan Hicks in the back. They're going to score runs. When I look at the rest of that division, I like Milwaukee. I like their rotation with Woodruff and Burns at the top. Freddie Peralta is a guy to keep an eye on. I think he's going to have a nice year for them. They're going to score runs with Yelich and those kind of guys. Got a solid lineup. Improve their defense. Sign Jackie Bradley to play. He's playing right field for them. Gives them a real good defensive player out there. So we'll see what the Brewers can do. When you look at the rest of that division, the Cubs I think have taken a step back. They're probably third best at most. Cincinnati and Pittsburgh kind of still in that rebuild mode. Out west, obviously the Dodgers are the team to look for. Probably going to be a 100-game winner, probably the favorite to win the World Series again. Mookie Betts, Clayton Kershaw, those guys. They signed Trevor Bauer, so they had a Cy Young winner to their staff. This is a deep team. This team is very talented. San Diego made a lot of moves in the offseason, brought in Darvish, brought in Joe Musgrove, brought in Blake Snell to head up their rotation. Tatis is going to be a terror. He's going to be a great player. They got a nice balanced offense. I think the Padres are a team that can challenge the Dodgers. Don't think they'll catch them. I think San Diego's going to have to settle for a wild card spot. Rest of that division is teams that are kind of in a rebuild mode. San Francisco is a lot of old veterans on that team. They're trying to piece stuff together. Arizona's got some young guys that look pretty good. I like the Rojas kid's going to play second base for them. Keep an eye on him. And and I'm not even remember who else is in that division. San Francisco, San Diego, Dodgers. I don't know. Whoever's Colorado. I'm sorry. Yeah, Colorado's in a full rebuild. I'm trying to think because they've kind of destroyed their team. That team's going to finish last place in the West. When you move over to the American League, you want to stay out west. Houston, lost some players, but I think they're going to be probably still be able to hold on to first place out there. I like what the Angels have done. And some guys to Mike Trout, Jared Walsh, a first baseman, young kids going to have a nice year. They added some pitching. Quintana's going to have a nice year for them throwing the ball. They'll probably finish second. Oakland, you never know what Oakland's going to do. Are they going to make a move? Are they bring a guy in? Young team, a lot of talent. They can challenge that division. And Seattle and Texas probably bringing up the rear there. White Sox in the Central, they lost Eloy Jimenez for probably most of the year, torn pectoral muscle. He's going to be out for a while. I still think they're a little bit behind Minnesota out there. I like the Twins to win that division. And then I think Cleveland will finish third. And you'll see Kansas City and Detroit kind of bring up the rear. And in the American League East, the big thing is the Yankees. People are high on them. They did lose Luke Voit. Severino's out. Injuries are already starting to bite the Yankees already. Tampa Bay, dealt some guys, but I think they're still right there with the Yanks. I think it's going to be a two-team race in the East. Toronto made a lot of moves. They added a guy like George Springer to a young team that's very talented. But I don't know if the Blue Jays are going to quite have the pitching to kind of hang on and win that division. Red Sox, probably maybe a little bit better than a 500 team this year. Again, the pitching is really the question there. Boston's going to score runs. They get a lot of offensive weapons, but the pitching staff has a lot of question marks, a lot of guys with injury histories. Eovaldi, Rodriguez, even Nick Pivetta made the rotation, former Philly. We'll see what he can do. Garrett Richards, another guy. A lot of question marks on that team on the pitching staff. And then, obviously, Baltimore is in a complete rebuild. They're going to finish the bottom division. So, interesting situation there with that. We're going to see how the Phillies do. But again, it should be exciting. Hopefully, baseball doesn't have a lot of COVID issues this year. We'll see teams get to play those full 162 games, and it'll be a fun summer. NCAA tournament, Monday and Tuesday were the Elite Eight games. So by the time you see this, we'll know what the Final Four is going to be. My impressions, really impressed with some of the lower seeds. The way Oregon State's been playing, the way UCLA, a play-in team, has played in this tournament has been outstanding. But I still think right now, when you look at it, I think the two teams that kind of seem like they're on a collision course are probably Gonzaga and Baylor. Baylor's playing very, very well. They look like one of the best teams in the country, and Gonzaga is just steamrolling people. I picked them to win the tournament. I think they're going to cap their undefeated season, and we'll find out. We'll know this week if they make it that far. And very exciting tournament so far. So it's been fun to watch. But that gives you a look at some of the national sports. We come back on Gazette Sports Week. Kyle Pantalone is going to be back. We'll do the Final Fives coming up right after this.
Maplewood is known for their homemade spaghetti. their comfortable atmosphere and seating with complimentary bread and salad, along with great service to make it feel like home. At Maplewood, you are sure to get that Italian family love.
Welcome back to Gazette Sports Week, sponsored by Adrenaline Fitness, and Kyle Panelo is back with me. We're going to do the final five. Kyle, what do you got for the first question for me?
All right, first question I got. Which local wrestling team will have more wins this season, Hammonton or St. Joseph?
Well, right now, I mean, we're coming up on almost halfway through the season, which is really kind of scary when you think about it. But right now, St. Joe has 2. Hammonton hasn't won yet. It's going to be tough to tell. I mean, Hammonton's issue, I think, is that they're very young, very inexperienced, and they wrestle against some really, really strong teams. I think it's going to be real tough for them to string together a couple wins this year. Maybe down the road, the schedule does lighten up towards the end. I think they'll be able to compete a little more. St. Joe's issue, I think if St. Joe had a full team, I mean, right now they're only going with 7 wrestlers. If they had the full 14 guys, I think they'd win a lot of matches because they have a lot of guys who can get out on a mat and win. The problem's going to be, are they going to be able to overcome those forfeits? They were able to do it last week against Vineland because they got 3 pins and 3 forfeits, and you know, they got the bonus points to be able to pull the match out. But if I had to guess, I mean, with St. Joe already having a 2-win head start at this point, I think St. Joe's probably going to finish with a couple more wins.
Gotcha. I don't want to give my opinion there, being an alma mater at Hammonton.
I
know. I gotta keep it on my side.
Well, that's why I didn't ask you, because I know where you would go. All right, man. Well, question for you. You know, you play in college hockey. I mean, what's the toughest part of being a college hockey player?
I would say there's kind of like 2 tough parts to it. Obviously, you got to balance your schoolwork on top of playing an athletic sport here at the university. Like every student athlete probably runs into that problem.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it could get a little busy at times. But playing hockey for one, and being in a conference that's like so spread out like ours, like we got a lot of bus trips, and normally on a normal year we got a lot of overnight trips. So you know, just keeping your body ready, you know, getting proper treatment, and you know. Just staying in on that because it's a lot of back-to-backs and taking care of your body and making sure you're not sore going into a game or anything like that. So
absolutely, I remember the bus trips, man. They're not fun. Those D3 bus trips are joy.
The 8 hours and the sloppy sandwiches and pizza on the road. Eating that, you know, getting your meal money to go to the rest stop. Oh yeah. They treat us as well as they can, though. So I can't really complain.
I'm sure it's better than when I was in school in the 80s. I remember the big thing was my sophomore year, the meal money jumped from $4 to $6. So that was like a big deal to get your $6 at the end of the games from when we stopped at like Wendy's or something. So.
Yeah, that's 2 burgers instead of 1, eh?
There you go. You're rocking that. All right, man. Third question is I let the guests ask me anything they want, so you can throw something at me, bro.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we see Carson Wentz leave town. What kind of season he's going to have this year? What do you think?
With the Colts, I don't know. I mean, when I watched him this year, you know, I saw a guy that I thought was kind of regressing a little bit. I mean, I know there's been a lot of talk about, you know, well, the play calling and the system and the lack of talent that was kind of around him. But I mean, you know, when I see the balls falling short and being overthrown and him, I think not really making the right reads a lot of times. I mean, I love when I watch a game when they show you that wide angle shot, sort of that coach's view, and you can see the whole field, which is kind of funny. Like when I go to football games, you know, like pro games, I always like to sit way up high because you can see the whole field. And you know, and I'm watching him, and it doesn't look like he's going through his progressions properly. You know, I mean, you hear different things. I mean, that he's lazy in the film room, that kind of stuff. I mean, I can't comment on that because I'm not there. But I mean, you know, to me, I don't know. I mean, going back with Reich, who's familiar with what Carson can do and can work some things out with him. You know, I mean, I think he'll have a kind of a bounce back year. Hopefully, he stays healthy. You know, I mean, you never want to see a guy get hurt.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, but I think he'll be okay. I don't know for them. I don't know that he's a vast improvement on like they may have Phillip Rivers last year. You know, I don't see Carson Wentz being like any kind of huge improvement. I think if I had been the Colts, I maybe would have tried to just trade up in the draft and draft a guy because I'm not convinced that Wentz is going to be the guy that's going to put them over the top.
Yeah. I mean, that's a fair assumption.
Mm-hmm.
I like the guy. I hope nothing but the best for him. We'll see him go, but you can't forget what he does for us. Kind of leading us to that Super Bowl before Nicky takes over. So
there you go. He did have a nice year that year. I'll give him that. I mean, he was one of the best there was. A question for you, Kyle. I mean, obviously, you played hockey for a long time. What do you think people can do to kind of maybe generate some more interest, in youth hockey, get more kids involved in the sport?
I think it all just kind of stems from like a learn to play aspect. I mean, I think a lot of rinks now are doing a great job, and a lot of the NHL teams are really getting involved in the communities that they stem to kind of extend the learn to play program, like for all these young kids and kids that might not have the opportunity to get into hockey like right from the start or may not even know about it. So what the learn to play program does, like I think the Flyers have one. And when I was playing my junior hockey, I was affiliated with the Islanders in a way, and they would send someone in, and they send the bag and like all the equipment in, and the same kids come every week, and you help them get dressed and give them an hour or so on the ice, and they love it. They have a blast, and they learn what to do. So I think just marketing it that way, especially like in a market that may not have the opportunity for it, like you could use Hammonton for an example. Like I know we don't have a local ice rink, but any neighboring rinks in the areas, you kind of like promote it a little bit for any family that might want to get their child in ice hockey.
Absolutely.
I think that'd be great to see.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because like you said, youth sports in general, I think are seeing a little bit of a decline. The little leagues are struggling, and even the Hawks and stuff locally. I mean, it's tough. I mean, I think we got to do more to get kids involved in sports at any level. Any sport really is my thing. But that's just me.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, man. Last question. What do we have?
Last question here. Which Phillies player will perform higher than expectations this season?
Hard to say. I mean, I guess when you look around that team, you try to pick one guy that you think is going to maybe step up and do a little bit. A guy I kind of have my eye on is Eflin in the rotation. I think he's a guy that I think because he doesn't have to be one of the top 2 or 3 starters on that team. I think he can kind of settle into probably going to be the 3 spot in the rotation. I think the guy's got good enough stuff to maybe be a legitimate 3 starter. I mean, I think this is a big year for him because I think he's shown flashes in the past of being a guy that can maybe go out and win you 12 to 15 games. And I think he's got to do that this year because I don't like the back end of the rotation with the Phillies. I think you got a lot of question marks there. I think the bullpen's starting to come together, but I really think Zach Eflin's a guy to kind of keep an eye on as a guy that can maybe take that next step and give them really, I think, 3 really big time starters.
Yep, and I'm sure you're happy to see that we got JT back another year. So
absolutely.
Good,
I mean, I was a catcher, so anytime you can get a good catcher, I'm going to be happy. And I think he's probably the best catcher in baseball right now. There's a couple of guys that are kind of chomping at his heels, but he brings a lot to the table because he can run a little bit. He's got some pop, and he's very good defensively, which is really important. But
definitely.
Yeah. All right, brother. Well, I want to thank you for coming on with me today and doing the show. And good luck in the playoffs, man.
No problem, Dan. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. It was great.
Okay, and that wraps up another edition of Gazette Sports Week. Again, we're sponsored by Adrenaline Fitness, and we come back next week. We'll talk more local sports and see what the pro teams are doing, so be sure to check it out.